How we doing, man? We feeling good? You look like number one bull crap. How's it feel, man? You feeling good?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
For some reason, you sound more Russian on YouTube. But anyways, this would be your second Hart Trophy win. Do you know where you put the other one, or what do you do?
Yeah, it's at my office.
So much enthusiasm from Kucherov. No, I'm loving it up the top, man. What are your predictions for the next season, Nikita? What do you like next season?
Try to win the cup.
That is such amazing advice for hockey players, man. Wow.
Okay, welcome to a special pre-draft edition of 32 Thoughts, the podcast. This will be a special news podcast. We're going to fire through as much news as we know as is current. The show is always brought to you by the GMC Sierra Elevation. And because there will be no Montana's Thought Line on this one, it is strictly news, a bonus pod. We want to shout out one of our key sponsors. We've had a great relationship with them all season, and that's Montana's Barbecue and Bar, Canada's home for barbecue. Now, before we get going, we almost had one of the
international incident.
Great fashion moments in the history of the NHL awards. Do you care to explain what happened to you on Thursday late afternoon?
Yes, I want to shout out Sheena Czar, who was the makeup artist at the awards. So one of the great things Sportsnet does is they ship our suits in the trucks so that we don't have to carry them around with us, and they stay in pristine condition. The only minor problem in this particular case was that the studs for the tuxedo shirt did not arrive.
Who are you blaming for that? Names. Who are you blaming? Say it.
Not blaming anybody else.
Sam Kinison and back to school. Say it.
They are far more good for me than they are bad for me.
He's trying to get you in trouble.
The problem about this thing was that if you thought the debate on Thursday night was bad, what would have been worse would be my human sweater being released to the general public.
And there would have been no debate about it.
In between Jim Nill and Rick Tocchet as Connor Bedard accepted the Calder Trophy.
Listen,
however,
hang on. As I've told you, Paul Bissonnette walked so you could run.
Yes.
He opened up the buttons so you could open yours for the great unveiling.
But Sheena Czar, Las Vegas-based makeup artist, Sheenazar, she found some buttons and she sewed them on the shirt.
Crisis
averted.
Oh, gotcha.
But what I really wanted to do was I wanted to shout her out because this is someone who I just met who went above and beyond. And I really appreciate it. So if anyone in the Las Vegas area needs a makeup artist
or some buttons
sewed on, look up Sheena. So I really appreciate it. I also wanted to just shout out quickly from the awards, in addition to the people who won, Noah Lalonde, one of the presenters,
so good,
has a dog named Crosby.
Yeah.
I
love that. Do you know what my favorite dog story is?
Okay.
Dog hockey story. Ready for it?
Boy, we're really wasting the first of the pod.
I know.
Now.
We're going to get to news. Corey Conacher named his dog after the goalie he scored his first NHL goal against. You know what his dog's name is? Holtby.
Oh, that's actually...
How do you think Holtby feels about that?
I'll tell you who's not going to find that funny.
Braden Holtby. Anyhow, we move on. We're in Vegas for the draft, folks. That's why we're here. We're going to plow through a ton of news, but you have some questions about the draft before we get rolling.
Yeah, so I just want to talk to you. We'll start our new segment here. We all know who's going one.
Yep.
Celebrini. So I looked at Jason Bugala and Sam Cosentino, our draft experts, to see where they think it's going from here. They both have Demidov going 2, Levshunov going 3. I had some people who thought that the Blackhawks were going to take Levshunov, but I defer to these two guys. They know more than I do. What do you think is going to happen?
Based on, now, I've only really been at this for a couple of weeks, and the most recent conversations were this morning, and that would be Thursday morning. And so I haven't been at it as long as Books and Sammy have. So, again, I will defer to them. Based on my conversations, it is my belief that Chicago will take Levshunov second. Anaheim will take Zeev Buim third.
You think Anaheim's taking Zeev Buim?
I do. Third overall, Junior Duck turns into Big Duck.
Yep.
Caden Lindstrom goes to the Columbus Blue Jackets at 4.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. because I think that's where the draft really starts.
At number 4?
Yeah. So...
And then Davidoff falls to the Montreal Canadiens.
I will say to you, the Columbus Blue Jackets had a beautiful moment at the awards on Thursday night when Lindy Noel was honored, the living kidney donor for Aaron Portzline. I thought that was
gorgeous,
really special. And, I talked to Lindy briefly, and she goes, I've talked to Todd Sharrock about you. Todd Sharrock is the outstanding media relations person of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I said, oh, yeah? How often does Todd swear immediately after he mentions my name? And she said, only about 20% of the time. Let's see if I can raise that number.
Okay.
I'll say this. The draft, I think, really starts here in terms of action. I think Columbus is the center of the universe when it comes to potentially moving down. And there are teams out there who believe that the Blue Jackets are motivated to do something big. They would like to make a splash. Now, Pierre LeBrun had the report about Philadelphia. I didn't hear everything Pierre said, but he's right that Philly was in there. What I heard was Columbus wanted something big. The 12, which would have to be included because that's Philly's current pick. Philly has the 32nd pick and potentially Colorado's number 1 from next year. And
that's from the Walker deal.
What's that?
That's from the Walker deal.
Yes. And what I heard was that was too much for Philly, but the two teams were expected to speak again today, Friday. Now, I think there's another team in there. I don't believe that Philly is the only team in there. And this is a guess.
Are you going to say Calgary?
No, I wasn't going to say Calgary. Okay. Why? Were you going to say Calgary?
I'm just wondering if Calgary has a feeling that Montreal is interested in TJ Ginla. Do they jump up?
Okay. I wonder if the other team is potentially Carolina. And Martin Necas is included in this. That's the team I'm throwing a dart at.
Okay.
And we'll see if that dart is a triple 20 or I broke a light
180
aside of the board.
All right.
But I think there's more than one team. I think people see that Columbus is motivated to deal.
Interesting. So we'll see what happens later on today, a few hours after you listen to this podcast. Now, another team that made a move today with draft picks are the San Jose Sharks.
Yep.
So San Jose trades 14 and 42 to Buffalo in exchange for the 11th overall pick. Your theory is what?
Cole Yzerman,
who is a teammate of Macklin Celebrini at Shattuck St. Mary's and going to Boston University next year. And you and I have had the debate whether Macklin Celebrini is going to BU next year.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this would warm him up to it.
You don't trade from 14 to 11 unless you think there's someone you can't get at 14.
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
And what it also allows you to do, if you want to, is even move up a couple more spots.
Yep.
If it still scares you. That's my theory. And I'm not the only one with it. Other people have it. But I think it's a very good working theory.
We shall see. A lot of drama, we suspect, at this year's edition of the NHL Draft here in Vegas. Elsewhere around the NHL, let's just start firing through some news here.
Okay.
We'll start with the Edmonton Oilers, and the big one is Ken Holland and the Edmonton Oilers. Or should we say Ken Holland X of the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah, I think this was kind of the expected outcome. I think Ken Holland was ready to move on. There's going to be a new power structure there. And, one of the things that happened because Edmonton went all the way to Game 7 is that they couldn't go search for anyone else. The last thing the Oilers wanted in the Stanley Cup final is that, oh, hey, they're talking to this guy. So I think everybody knew that it was going to end this way. Mm-hmm. I think everybody was okay with it. And what I believe is going to happen is that Edmonton is going to get through this weekend, and they said, we have to plan to do the draft and free agency without Ken Holland, but we better have a plan, and we'll worry about hiring someone in July. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, Jeff Jackson clarified one thing, that he doesn't want to be the longtime GM. He's kind of the interim GM right now, but he's going to go out and he's going to get someone else. And when I was on with Bob Stauffer on Thursday night, the name I kind of threw out there is the type of profile, not necessarily that he's going to be the person, but the type of profile is like a Jason Botterill type. Someone who's either been in the chair before or has been around a long time. I think they're a little concerned about a rookie GM with the kind of decisions that need to make.
Right.
And he also said in his media interview on Thursday that he wants the new GM involved in the Draisaitl negotiations. So that's, I think, where we are, and that's what we're going to do. Ken Holland said goodbye to the players on Wednesday. And, I heard that was a little bit emotional. I think, look, you can debate the goods and the bads of Ken Holland's tenure, but you can debate the merits of Ken Holland, good news, bad news. I don't think his true impact was about that. I think the biggest and best thing he did with the Oilers was he taught them how to ride the wave. So I spoke to him the day before Game 7, and I said, how did they get back in this series? And he said that in Canada, you are always 2 losses away from total chaos. And he said that this team has been through so much craziness during the 5 years he was there, ups, downs, crises, non-crises, that he felt they could handle everything. And he was like that. He didn't go crazy when a lot of us went crazy. And
about goalies specifically.
Exactly. They made coaching changes, but, there were times he would make a coaching change 6 months after people had started screaming about it. So I really do think that was the biggest impact he had on them. The other thing I think that really they liked was that he listened to them. They had a voice. I talked about this year, there was talk that Cody Ceci was going to be traded. The players went to them and said, don't do that now. He didn't always do what they wanted, but he did listen, and they appreciated that. And, you'd think with Connor McDavid's former agent, Jeff Jackson, being in charge now, that won't change. But I know the leaders and the players really appreciated that about him. So I think the biggest change from Holland leaving will not necessarily be his moves, but it will be the way his personality affected the team. And I know that a general manager, that's not what most of us judge them on, but it was a very, very big part of what molded the Oilers into a team that could come back from 3-0 down in the final and almost win the Stanley Cup.
So I want to ask you about Leon here in a couple of seconds, but first, the future of Ken Holland. Do we see Ken Holland again?
I think we will. I think it'll be on his own timeline. One team I could see being interested in him in a advisory or consultant type role would be Utah. That's one team I could see.
Utah would make a lot of sense. To Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Last time we talked about him, we talked about not making decisions when you're emotional.
Yeah.
I would imagine he's still emotional. I don't think it's a good time to make decisions yet, but where is Leon Draisaitl, his camp, at?
I like people who make emotional decisions as long as it's not me.
Oh, I'm all for everybody making emotional decisions. Players, managers, everybody, mascots, name it.
So I know everybody freaks out when something doesn't happen on July 1st.
Or when players say, I need time to think about it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it became pretty clear to me during the Cup final this was not going to happen on July 1st. And who knows, maybe they surprise us all and it does. But it was pretty clear to me that this was going to be a middle of July kind of thing at the earliest, Jeff. I think that he needed to get over the emotion of the situation. He needed time to think. And that's what agents do too. Like his agent, Mike Elliotte, he has been in the NHL for 5,000 years. And
True. As a goalie, as an agent.
so
Should have been the leader of the PA.
he'll slow Leon down and just say, hey, like, now, as we said, and Jeff Jackson said, I think he wants the new GM to talk to Leon too. And, you know, the other thing that happens too is that when you go to game 7 of a final and you lose by 1 point, it can change what you're thinking. And I think that is the other thing that Draisaitl has to get through as well. But the number one thing that goes in my head is this is not just a Leon Draisaitl negotiation. This is also a Connor McDavid negotiation.
Can I throw one more in?
Evan Bouchard?
Yes.
No offense to Evan Bouchard, because he's a good player. This is about Draisaitl and McDavid.
I'm saying the sidebar to this is I don't think he wants to make a decision long term until he knows what's happening with those.
Fair enough. But this is about those two guys. And there's no way that there's going to be any clarity until both of them know exactly what each other is thinking. And I don't think the Oilers, especially as this went into the final, I got the sense that the Oilers were like, if this doesn't happen by the draft, we're not going to panic. If this doesn't happen by July 1st, we're not going to panic. We'll see what happens.
You get time.
What's that?
You have time. Why panic?
Well, I just think fans panic.
I get that, but
Yeah.
the management
They won't.
shouldn't panic.
No, So I think this goes into the summer, and I think it's, like I said, it's not just a Draisaitl conversation.
Yeah.
It's a Draisaitl McDavid conversation because they're going to both want to know what the other one is going to do, plus what the team's plans are. Like they've got 1 billion unrestricted free agents, including the line that helped turn around the Stanley Cup.
True.
Brown, Henrique, and Janmark.
Okay, let's fly through some other names and some other teams here, and we hope you get a chance to listen to this because by the time Friday rolls around, it's late Friday afternoon, be a whole bunch of new news to talk about. Los Angeles Kings are closing in on whom? Or maybe put it better, the Los Angeles Kings are interested in whom?
I think Tyler Toffoli is very much on their radar. I can't remember which pod it was, but I recently mentioned Vancouver. Must have been last Friday. Vancouver and Rangers. Our West Coast hockey buddy John Davis said, You forgot a team, the Kings.
Yep.
And I think they're going to be a very real contender for him.
You mentioned the New York Rangers, Jacob Trouba.
So Jacob Trouba switches from a full no-trade protection to partial on July 1st. And as we know now, they have asked him for the teams. That's true. It's not a big deal. However, Chris Drury has shown this offseason, if he has to make a hard decision,
He is not emotional.
that is not popular
Yeah.
always, he will do it. And I think what that has done, it has definitely sent waves through the NHL that Jacob Trouba can be had. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what he decides to do.
Josh Manson, Colorado. Now, Colorado also, by the way, re-signed Casey Middlestat to a 3-year, $17.25 million deal, 5.7 on the AAV. But Josh Manson, what's the future here?
Well, I just heard that teams had asked Colorado about Manson. He also goes to partial protection on July 1st. But I heard that Colorado had no interest in doing that. That he is their most physical defenseman, and they'd really be losing a lot if they couldn't keep him. Now, of course, after I say that, he'll probably be traded 10 minutes after the podcast drops. But I heard they had no interest in moving him.
The Washington Capitals, you know what they're doing? Adding salary, adding players.
Yeah, adding Andrew Mangiapane.
Yes, in exchange for a second-round draft pick. Your thoughts here?
Well, that said to me that the Flames were not going to extend him, that he was not a part of their future. It says to me that Washington is, like we said, that they were going to be busy. and they are busy.
Pierre-Luc Dubois, 8.5.
Yeah.
Andrew Mangiapane, 5.8. Let's add some salary here.
Yeah, they're buying low. Mangiapane had a really tough year.
Yep.
You think he'd be motivated. But what it said to me is he was not part of Calgary's future, and it leads to a lot of talk that maybe the Jake DeBrusk to Calgary talk is real. Though I heard one thing about the Flames. They were going to be very careful about term.
Right, with the amount of kids coming. Something you reported on Thursday as well, the Nashville Predators and Juuse Saros, 8-year contract extension somewhere in the sevens.
Yeah, I think it's like 7 3/4 that way.
Okay.
Because I was expecting when I first heard it, I was like, 8.5, 8.25. And then person told me it was going to be in the sevens. And I was like, what? Really? And what I heard, and I heard this not from any of the direct parties involved, but I heard it from, I think, someone who would know, is that Juuse Saros said, get this done. I want to be a Predator. Get this done. And so it's getting done. He's going to extend. I think that there's a lot of talk about what this means for Askarov, and we'll see. But the one thing I love about Barry Trotz is he's super blunt. I think it was Alex Dougherty this week that was talking with Barry Trotz. Dougherty covers the Predators for the Nashville Tennessean. And Trotz said some quote. He's so good. He said, Yaroslav Askarov will be ready, not when you think he's ready or the fans think he's ready or I think he's ready. He'll be ready when he's ready. So, I mean, we'll see how the player feels. You never know. But the Predators, they are not rushing this guy. And it was...
He's still only in his early 20s.
Yeah, but you know how some kids
I know,
are.
but it is. It's,
they want to play.
I know it's first-round pick and all that, but he's a goaltender.
Hey, man, it's easy for you and me to say, but back when you were doing your show with Bill Waters and Bill was taking all the airtime, you were steaming on the side. You wanted more airtime. I know you're kind of like that. So, like I said, it's easy for us to say. I heard that the Predators had a chance to bring Lankinen back, that there was something going on there, but, we'll see. And also, someone who reminded me that, Saros over-marinated while Rinne was there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, going back to David Poile, the Predators aren't afraid to do this. We'll see. We'll see how it all works out.
Listen to the 32 Thoughts podcast ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Okay, Elliotte buyouts. I reported Thursday morning Ryan Suter will be bought out by the Dallas Stars, the final year of his contract, and we wonder about Jeff Skinner and the Buffalo Sabres as well.
First of all, good scoop on Ryan Suter.
Blind squirrel finds a nut.
I think he Ryan Suter will be definitely motivated by that. Clearly wants to play, and I have no doubt he'll find something. Skinner, Kevin Adams indicated here on Thursday, no decisions are final yet, but he kind of hinted that, it's kind of, we talked about Skinner's not inclined to waive his no move clause, because the thing is, and why would you go on waivers instead of picking your spot? So we'll see where this goes. But I've wondered about Seattle for Skinner. Again, every time what's that?
Botterill factor?
Yeah, and anytime a team's looking for scoring, and
Makes
the
sense.
Botterill factor, as you said. One thing about Buffalo, too, I think a couple of the guys that Adams has kind of looked at have been, I think he's looked at a couple of Pittsburgh guys, Lars Eller and Riley Smith. I don't think either one of them is going to happen necessarily, but I think that was some of the stuff he kicked around. And I also wanted to mention, it really sounds like Sam Reinhart, if not announced, that's happening in Florida, I think.
Okay.
There's not a person in the league who thinks that Sam Reinhart
57
is
goals.
going
I know.
to free agency. And they wonder if it's one of those things that it's sort of like Bill Zito has that in the corner and he says, okay, I've got my contracts. I've got that. How much other room do I have to play with? So everybody thinks the Reinhart thing is done.
Yep.
I assume around 9.5.
Okay.
And we'll see. And then
Now, there's some 10s on the board there.
no,
A goalie, a winger, a center.
I don't think.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, how do you do this?
Well, that's the thing. So, and now there's the Verhaeghe rumors, which I don't discount.
Yeah, I can see that.
And now, the Ekblad thing, and I'll credit to Dave Pagno.
The Verhaeghe rumors, by the way, are them re-signing him, like extending
What's that?
him. Not the Verhaeghe rumors are extending.
Yes,
him.
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Dave Pagnotta wrote about Aaron Ekblad potentially being available. I don't know that to be true, but I'm not saying he's wrong because that rumor has been going around for a while.
Yep.
And he goes during the Stanley Cup final, it's impossible to kind of deal with that. And Ekblad's going from a no move clause to a partial. And, there's definitely been some talk that could happen. It's like Ryan McDonough a couple of years ago when Julian
Tampa won the
Brisebois
cup,
has to go to Ryan McDonough right after they lost their attempt at the third straight Stanley Cup and say, we got to do this. So it's basically the same thing. But, we'll see where that all goes. But I have multiple people telling me that the Reinhart thing is done, and whether or not it's signed by Monday, he's not going to the market.
Jake Guentzel, does he get to market?
So Carolina wants to get Guentzel done before the draft. Really seriously. They've been aggressive, and they're attempting to do it. There are several teams who think it's going to get done. Nothing is done until it's done. I always say, young Merrick, but there are several teams who believe it's going to get done. One of the theories about Vancouver's decisions the other day in terms of re-signing a lot of their own players is that maybe there'd been some intel out there that the Guentzel situation was trending in that direction. We'll see what Friday brings, but one of the other teams that was rumored to be into Guentzel was Tampa. I have no idea how they'd make that work, but it fits their MO. There was some suspicion that Tampa was in on Guentzel. Again, Carolina was trying to close this, and as of Thursday night, there was zero confirmation, but there are teams who believe Guentzel's going to get done in Carolina. We'll see if that's right or that's bad intel. Because remember, around the draft, everybody lies.
All right. Well, clock's ticking when you're listening to this podcast right now on Jake Guentzel and the Carolina Hurricanes, if that's when they want it done. You mentioned the Vancouver Canucks, and they've been busy. They've been getting rid of players to the Chicago Blackhawks and opening up room for Dakota Joshua and re-signing Tyler Myers and re-signing Teddy Bluger.
Yes.
McCabe and Lafferty, by the way, we should mention, go to Chicago.
Yeah, so they made the deal. Myers. So I got to tell you,
Myers is really good for them.
I like Tyler Myers. I think he's a great person. I know that Rutherford and Tocchet really like him, and Tocchet likes size, and they're worried they're going to lose Zadorov. So they couldn't. I really think that they couldn't lose both those guys. That would fundamentally change the way they play defense. Here's the funny thing about Myers. Remember the last time he signed in Vancouver? It got out like a week early. He was going to the Canucks. Then everybody spent a week denying it, saying it's not happening, it's not done, this is a lot harder than you think, and he signed with the Canucks. We've been saying for weeks they were going to get something done with Myers, Jeff. And all of a sudden, it's really complicated, it's really convoluted.
Yeah.
And they get something done with Myers at the exact number that we all thought it's 3 times 3.
Yeah. So
in the future, whenever Tyler Myers is a free agent and we think he's going somewhere, don't believe the lies.
Anything else on Vancouver?
I think Dakota Joshua left money on the table for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? By the way, you know what? I wanted to say this. Do you know what I heard really, aside from the way Tocchet is in a lot of ways, but you know what I heard really won over some players in Vancouver this year?
Won over some players?
Won over some players. So you think you have a good team. He puts you in position to succeed. But one player said to me today, there was something else that he did that scored with them.
What's that?
Remember when Carson Soucy got suspended in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
they said he really aggressively defended Susie in the hearing. Like, he challenged NHL player safety a couple times. And it got back to the other players. I thought that was
it's a nice touch.
neat little touch.
All right, elsewhere around the NHL.
Tocchet would have expertise at getting suspended, so he would know what it was
if anyone's
all
going to go into a hearing with George Peros and like be willing to take his jacket off and loosen the tie around his neck, it's going to be Rick Tocchet.
that was nice. Yeah.
A couple of players we have our eyes on in advance of Monday and the free agent window opening. Chris Tanev. It does very much feel like this thing is coming down to Dallas versus Toronto.
I have to say this. I had people say to me Thursday night that they don't think Vancouver's out of this yet. I really think, I just don't know. Here's the thing though. Like, I think Dallas really wants him bad.
I agree.
I think they're wondering what Toronto and Vancouver could do here. I think they want him really bad. I think it's probably pushed Dallas a little bit already. And it probably has to push them even farther into a place they weren't initially comfortable going.
Yeah.
But
Dallas can sell the no tax.
Yeah.
And Toronto can add years.
And so can Vancouver.
Are willing to add years.
Well, look, like Tree Living loves the player.
Oh yeah.
And Rutherford, when he wants to do something, he gets it done. So, but I do think Dallas is motivated to try to close this. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to. And remember, I think William Carrier is a guy on Dallas's radar too.
Other defensemen that we wonder about being on radars is Brett Pesce. One team that I wonder about with Brett Pesce are the New Jersey Devils. I know Nashville is interested.
Yeah.
Dallas,
Utah,
Toronto,
Utah.
Yes.
Utah's going to get a defenseman somewhere here.
I had wondered if they were going to get Brady Shea and Brett Pesce as a pair.
I don't think so.
I got that shot down here in Vegas.
Okay. I know a lot of people are thinking Nashville for Brady Shea.
Nashville for Brady Shea?
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking.
So I'm wondering about Brett Pesce in New Jersey.
We speculated that. It was speculated elsewhere this week.
It'd have to be a subsequent move with like a John Marino. But
yeah,
I can see New Jersey and Brett Pesce being
like you look. There's several teams out there you're looking at for D, and several players. We haven't mentioned Montour yet.
Yep.
Matt Roy, we haven't mentioned him yet. It's musical chairs, right? There's Toronto looking for 1D, maybe 2. There's Boston, I think, looking for a D.
Yep.
There's Nashville looking for at least 1D. There's Utah looking for 1 or 2. There's New Jersey. Like, there's a bunch of teams looking for D. Mm-hmm. So there's this merry-go-round here.
Hey, I want to get your thoughts, too. I know it's kind of an older story considering that we've just gone through a week over the course of 3 days. But the pride of Armor Heights goes from Detroit to San Jose, Jake Walman. In a second-round pick.
Yeah.
Everybody wonders, is just Yzerman loading up to do something big here?
Well, I heard he was completely blindsided, like he didn't see it coming. The fact that Yzerman hasn't talked says something to me.
Because he's not going to talk till it's all done.
That's exactly it. Like the thing about Yzerman is he doesn't duck. It's not like he's afraid of us.
Just doesn't like us.
Well, it's a long line of general managers who don't like us.
It's okay.
But he will give explanations. I think you're right. I think there's something else coming here, and he'll talk to us when it's all over.
Toronto Maple Leafs. Max Domi?
I heard 4 times 4 was what Domi was looking for, and I don't think that's unreasonable. Mm-hmm. Badly wants to stay.
Yeah.
So what I think is going on is Toronto has kind of indicated we got to sort out our D first, and then they're going to circle back on some of these guys. Now the question is, does Domi go get something else? Does Bertuzzi get something else? So that's the question. I think Toronto has prioritized our best resources have to go to our blue line, and we'll see how everything else shakes out. I'm going to stay away from the hot, scalding pot that is Mitch Marner, aside to say that I do think they're preparing to make him an offer. We'll see.
One other note here. St. Louis Blues making some news the other day. Steve Ott gets the bump up from assistant to associate coach.
Yeah.
And also Claude Julien joins as an assistant coach. I'm pretty sure they're also talking to and may have offered the job to Bruce Boudreau as well. So just throw that note out there as well. Anything else you want to go over before you wrap up this special news edition before the NHL draft?
I mean, I hope you enjoy this podcast because it could all be out of date really quickly.
We'll see. Hope you enjoy it.
I got to say,
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to the Sphere.
So I was there on Thursday afternoon.
I heard you're not allowed to take pictures.
It is spectacular.
Or you were allowed to take pictures, but you couldn't post them.
Can't post anything. No. And that's fair. That's because honestly, when you see it, you are going to be stunned. I was ready for it to be like, oh, this is cool. Elliotte, it's incredible. It is incredible in there. And to see what the NHL has put together and how this is going to look and all the different graphics, Elliotte, this is fantastic. I just hope that it turns out good on television. That's the only question, because when you walk into the Sphere, it's spectacular. It's stunning. It's like the most hardened, cynical, I hate everything hockey fan looks at this and says, "This is fantastic. This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen for the draft." When you get there later on today, you're going to be stunned. I think you're going to love it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rehearsal on Friday morning and the draft itself. I'm very excited for it.
It's going to be good. Again, thanks to our sponsors, the GMC Sierra Elevation and Montana's Barbecue and Bar, Canada's home for barbecue. Thanks for joining us on this pre-draft edition of the pod. Yes, Ellie.
And before you wrap it up,
I just did.
So you're taking a red eye home Friday night, right?
I am, yes.
So what Dom and I might do, depending on your time, if you have to run to the airport, because I know you like to be at the airport 7 hours early.
Closer to 8, but yeah.
What's that?
Closer to 8, but yeah.
Okay. What I might do with Dom is I might just do a stream of consciousness.
That'll go well, considering you lack of sleep the last 2 weeks.
And we're going to do one after July 1st.
Oh, yeah.
That will be our final pod of the year. So that's our podcasting schedule.
That is the schedule. All right. Enjoy the draft. Should be fantastic. We'll talk to you again soon.